The benefit of reading the Bible is you get to read over years of history in a minute and a half, and you go, he's okay. And you don't realize that this is your entire, decade of life. And yet, that's the way Joseph's life kind of lays out for us. Much of his life, God's purposes were non-existent to him. He couldn't have known them. But to get where he was taken by the Lord would require a lifetime, really, of self-denial. Here is a man that was ready to let God just be God no matter what. And through it all, Joseph maintains his testimony. When he is falsely accused, it's okay with Joseph. When he runs into unfair circumstances, it's all right with him. When there's wicked treatment and he doesn't deserve what he gets and heaven is prolonged in its silence, doesn't move Joseph a bit. Joseph just keeps on walking with God and serving God and loving God. James would later write of people like Joseph, we count them blessed who endure and who persevere, and Joseph did just that. If there's a lesson you can learn from this man's life, it would be that you should see your life in God's hands and that you should always be comfortable with what God does with it. No matter what you might see for the short term, no matter what you might experience for a while, if you can stay close to the Lord in faith and confidence, even in the worst of circumstances that you don't understand, in situations where you cannot see the hand of God. There's a portion in the scriptures we're going to get to in a couple of weeks where you read that God blessed Joseph in prison. But that's kind of like being, top dog in hell. I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing, Blessed in prison, great. Is that really where I want to be blessed? But yet Joseph didn't move off the dime, Nothing threatened his faith. Nothing threatened his hope. And he's the kind of kid that early on knows God well, and never looks back. It's that fierce kind of dependence and sureness that you find in guys like Paul when he finally ends up in Europe in Macedonia, and he and Silas are beaten up and thrown in jail, and at midnight Paul wants to sing worship songs. Let's just sing Jesus Loves Me one time, shall we, Silas? And they're bloodied and they're beaten and they're in the lowest jail and they're singing. These are crazy people unless they know God. And Paul knew God. Or men like Asaph that we studied a couple of Sunday mornings ago, who, when confronted with the apparent unfairness of life and the seeming lack of consequence for the wicked and their wicked ways, pressed on until he got God's point of view on the thing. And when he finally saw things from God's point of view, he went, I almost fell, but I'm okay now. I recognize where they're headed and that eternity is far past this life, and everything that frustrated him stopped frustrating him when he saw it from God's point of view. And Joseph is a guy like that. His relationship with God, found in the annals of the book of Genesis, are true at every point. He is true to himself in his walk. He is faithful and true to others around him. He blesses those who mean him harm. He is a loving and forgiving and wise man in all of his demeanor in every place that you see him. He's the most frustrating guy in the Bible to try to relate to. But he sets the bar high. He's like reading a holiness preacher's book, I don't know if you ever read holiness guys, but if you read guys like A.W. Tozer, no matter how well you're doing with the Lord, by the time you get through chapter 3, you go, I hate myself. Because they've always just lean on you, and they're, I'm just not even measuring up. So, the solution is don't read them. But then you get to Joseph, and he's just like one of those holiness guys, he just lets you have it. Because we have the advantage of our vantage point, we see the Lord at each point with his hands very involved and all over Joseph's life, that he's behind the scenes, that he's managing the circumstances, that he's moving hearts, that his providence is perfectly timed. It dictates every move. But you shouldn't lose sight of the fact that Joseph saw none of that. Any more than Job understood what he was going through, or Peter when he was denying the Lord, or the husband and wife on the way home to Emmaus after the death of Christ. There's just a disconnect between, their experience and the reality of what was going on. They had to hang on by faith. And Joseph certainly, day after week after month after year, sometimes for years at a time, had to hang in there. And he has only an unwavering assurance of God's love. And it maintains his walk. It calls him to stand firmly, and he did. And because of the stance that he took, He's never once confused by his circumstance. He's never once put off by the things that he faces. He doesn't ever go, I don't get it now. I give up. He's a soft-hearted, tender-spirited guy who waits upon the Lord to work it out.